Hear the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to St. John.
Glory to you, Lord.
There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came to be a witness. He came to bear witness of the light, that all those might believe through him, that all people might believe through him. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. And this is the record of John. When the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, "Who art thou?" he confessed, and he denied not but confessed, "I am not the Christ." And they asked him, "What then? Art thou Elijah?" And he saith, "I am not." "Art thou that prophet?" And he answered, "No." Then said they unto him, "Who art thou? That we may give an answer to them that sent us. What sayest thou of thyself?" He said, "I am the voice of one crying in the wilderness, 'Make straight the way of the Lord, as said the prophet Isaiah.'" And they which were sent were of the Pharisees. And they asked him and said unto him, "Why baptizest thou then, if thou be not that Christ, nor Elijah, neither that prophet?" John answered them, saying, "I baptize with water, but there standeth one among you whom ye know not. He it is who coming after me is greater than I, whose shoes latchet I am not worthy to unloose." These things were done in Bethany, beyond Jordan, where John was baptizing. And this is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord.
May the words of my lips and the meditations of all our hearts be now and always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen.
Amen.
Yesterday I was talking to my neighbour Tom Haig. He's a doctor and an anaesthetist working in the Newcastle hospitals, and he was describing his emotion as the first of the new vaccinations against COVID-19 was administered in the Newcastle hospitals, a sense of history being made as Harry Shukla and his wife were among the first people anywhere in the world to be vaccinated against this disease. There was a sense in what he was saying, a sense that a new dawn is breaking after the long night of our struggle with this infection. But will we, I wonder, in years to come, will we remember the names of the thousands of researchers and scientists right around the world who are working together to deliver this treatment? For surely this is an event which has united people in every country, and the vaccination which is being received here is the product of work of people in many, many different countries. Will we remember who all those people were? Probably not. But for all that, we will experience the impact of their work and of what they've done because of the lives we're able to lead, because of the lives we'll be able to lead in the future going forward. For many centuries, astronomers have worked to expand our knowledge of the visible universe, each one building on the work of someone who's gone before. Their passion has not been about securing their legacy, their own place in history, but to point to us sources of light almost impossible for us to imagine, so immense they are, so distant from us that the distances make no sense measured in years of light. The Bible contains many voices, the witnesses whose voices come down to us through the ages. Many of them are people we know little about. Isaiah, a shadowy figure, maybe written by many different people. But what matters to us is not so much who they were, what they looked like, but the message that God had given them to declare to his people. In our first reading today, we read that Isaiah was sent by God to speak words of comfort to his people who were in exile, who were broken, who were hopeless, and the groom in their wedding glory, to describe the relationship that God offers. The relationship that God offers, which he promises to those people, downhearted and broken and far from home, is a relationship of covenant. A covenant with his people which is eternal, which is unconditional, a covenant based on hope, on faith, and on love. John the Baptist, whom we hear of in our second reading, was not a prophet who was interested in establishing a movement. He was not interested in drawing people to himself. He refused to be defined by the expectations of the Jewish leaders when they came and said to him, "Well, are you the Messiah? That's the one we're waiting for. Are you Elijah? We've been told he would come again. Are you that prophet?" And he says, no, he says, "I am nothing more than a voice crying in the wilderness." He was driven by the passion placed in his heart by God to deliver that message, to prepare the people for the coming of the promise of God. And he could not imagine what God's future would look like. John, when he was preaching there and baptizing those people, could he have imagined that the one he was pointing towards would be his own cousin, Jesus of Nazareth, who would come into Jerusalem on a donkey, who would die on a cross? Could he have imagined such a thing? Absolutely not. He did not claim to understand, but he had a message to give, to point the people forward, to lead them to move on, so that they in turn would be able to receive that message, to receive God's promise when he came. That was his task, to prepare the way that the people might receive him. A few days ago here, we had a visitor, and Barbara and Jenny and I met the new archdeacon. Her name is Catherine Sowerbud Groves, as it happens, but I think Catherine will do. She looked round our lovely church and said how beautiful it was, and she talked with me about my nearly 25 years in this parish now. She felt I must have established something here of lasting value, she said. I'm not so sure, and it's not just because there's very few people in church today. I'm not so sure. I think we do well to remember that, in the words of the hymn, time like an ever-rolling stream bears all its sons away. They fly forgotten as a dream dies at the opening day. We do well to place ourselves in context. My calling is to be faithful, to be a servant of God's people, to be a messenger of his word. If I have enabled a single person to come closer to Christ, that's all I can hope for, and it's a matter of great joy. Because many years ago, when I was a curate at St. Philip's in Newcastle, an old lady came to me and gave me a dose of reality. She said to me, "The clergy, they're like ships in the night." And I do well to remember this. I am, even after 25 years, a ship in the night in the history of Whitley Chapel. But there are things that last, and there are things that matter, and there are things that are of lasting value. In a few weeks, here, couples will once again stand in this church and make their vows to one another as they have done for 250 years and more. They are fragile, and they're human, and they are imperfect. Yet, they will do so not just as two people doing something with one another, but as a sign before all of us of something lasting, something beautiful, a sign of hope, of faith and love, a sign which God himself has used to be a sign of his relationship of hope with his people, of his eternal covenant. Those who stand here in the months and the weeks to come will point us to that covenant, to which God has invited us in Jesus his Son. Jesus his Son, who even now and even here stands among us, and wherever, yes, even two or three are met in his name. Thanks be to God.